presentation. I prepared this paper to present in a discussion about crime, but then I decided I was not coming to the conference. And last week I decided to come to the conference. So I asked him and the organizer if I could present the paper because it was ready, it was there, and then they said okay. And then I saw the session discussing humanity, and I thought that there is some interface discussions. So the paper calls Spatial Profiles of Urban Segments, Assessing Patient Vulnerability to Crime. But I think at the end we are discussing, if we are talking about safety, what is a safe place? We are talking about urbanity, and we are talking about an unsafe and hostile place. We are also talking for something that's different from that. So what we need to know about space and crime, and I'm working in this area for more or less 10 years now, and sometimes I'm really skeptical what we are really doing. But what we already know for all this work done by Bill and all the other people working with crime is a local movement is beneficial for safety. So if you have more movement, it's safe. Larger scale movements, not so. So a high number of dwelling per segment promotes safety. Density works in a mysterious way because sometimes it tends to make a safe place, sometimes it goes the opposite direction. In America, they say that they are very important for safety. In Brazil, I don't think so. So density is a quite higher constituency that is built, have been saying recently as the most important aspect for humanity, safety, and things like that. But I still think that these results are a little bit fragmented, and also because I'm very critical for the way we are measuring and the statistic we are using, because we are importing this way of measure from experimental sciences, where you take one aspect and you see how this implies causes on another aspect, and the city and the urban environment is a complex thing. But we have to understand all the aspects in an integrated way. So, and I treat them as an intermediate knowledge that must be tested and must be verified across culture and across environments as well. In the last paper that Bill and Salas wrote about crime, Bill warns that other features of the evidence also suggest a modification to current paradigms. Features of environments that relate to crime risk rarely work on their own, by interdependent with other features, social as well, spatial and physical. So this kind of interdependence of the variables that really interests me, especially as how we are going to measure things. So the contribution of this work is to verify the story, first of all, in a different culture. So from Sweden to Brazil is a long way, and different social context as well. And we are trying to develop and integrate methodology to describe and analyze the structure of these places. And I'm trying to find a better word because I was trying to describe an environment. But environment is a huge word. You can define anything. And we start talking about atmosphere or ambience, or a series of variables that describe and give that special air of a place. Okay? Whoops. So we want to provide a final description of places and integrate a methodology to describe the structure of the spatial ambience. So we are working with what we call spatial profiles of urban segments. The profile, the idea of profile, is to join or to consider different features as whole, as defining one thing. And so the profile links together a series of meaningful traits that characterize an object or a phenomenon, like morphological, architectural, or social traits. And these spatial profiles that we were applying to crimes, we were looking, for example, first of all, we work on the spatial profiles of crimes. We look at the crime and we analyze all the characteristics of the environment where those crimes occur. So we have for robbery, homicide, burglary, what kind of environment defines this kind of crimes. But then we were working with the profile in a different way. We started looking at the profiles of urban spaces in the city. How these profiles enable us to understand in the same road the difference between one block or another block. So the profiles describe architectural, and in this case I'm only using architectural and urban qualities. Each profiles can range from, I'm using here 5, but I already use very successfully a profile of 7 traits. These profiles also have a theory behind them, because, for example, the number or the order of profiles use all these theories that describe qualities promoting urban vitality. So the profiles, for example, if I have integration as an element of a profile, 5 is the most integrated, 1 is the least integrated. I'm showing the maximum would be easier to understand. Hello? Okay. Now, for example, we are using here 5 elements making the profile: integration, variety of land use, density, interface, that is the quality of the visual permeability between the private and the public space, and constituency. These are, for example, examples of other elements used in other profiles when we observe different phenomena. But in crime, we're using this. So each of these qualities were rated from 1 to 5. And for example, these are 2 different environments. On the first one, we have an integration of 3, and the second one is a very central area, an integration of 5, very integrated places. Variety of use, this one is 1, it's only a residential place with no mixture. This is 3, because it mixed residential and a lot of different kinds of shops. Density, this is 5, it's a high dense neighborhood, this is 1, there is very little people living here. Interface, this is 1, because they're very close interface. Walls, very high walls over the road. This is 3, it's quite open. This 3, but not because it's open, but we call it interchangeable. It's very open during the day and very closed during the night. It's changed completely. And constituency, this is 1, it's very bad constituent, and this is 5, it's very much constituent. So this is the idea of the profile. So we applied this study in a seaside neighborhood of Boa Viagem in Recife. It's a middle-class neighborhood, it's a new neighborhood that started in the 70s, so we have only new buildings, very high density, and very high robbery rates. In fact, my state had until 6 years ago the highest homicide rate in the whole world. We have 4,000 homicides in a year. That was more than 5 years of Iraq war. And at that time, we had a very high fear, urban fear. In the last 6 years, it's improved a lot, but the environment is still resent from the fear, even so. So what we used to say that we lose the reality of the area, although it was in the northeast, very tropical, was very open. And we start seeing what we call hostile spaces. They are really not agreeable and also then they lead to vulnerable spaces. This is the seaside, the beach, with the high-rise buildings. And at the same time, this second photograph shows you the social imbalance, because we have poverty in Brazil living side by side to Joe with very healthy, wealthy neighborhoods. So this is the map of the city. So here we have the seaside. These blue things called very high middle class residential area, the yellow commercial areas. These are the shanty towns. We call petty shanty towns because every area has a shanty town nearby. And this also is quite like an island because we have a sea here, we have a river there, and the neighborhood is linked to the city center by 2 bridges. We have another neighborhood here, and also we have a train railway here. So the neighborhood is quite encapsulated in the city. Okay? Here. This is what we call the hostile spaces. We have these very high walls, completely blind. This is the portrait of a building, looks more like an arm thing. And I like this very much because surveillance camera needs to be protected, otherwise they steal the surveillance camera. And that's really body the fear.
So there's protection for the
protection. This is the kind data that we use in the studies. It's a street robbery, and it's a very rotten data. It's really much better to work with on-site than street robbery. But we have this for 3 years. We have all this map and shape file in GIS. And the problem that we call it the rotten data is because when people reported they were robbed, they said I was robbed in that road. But most of the time they're not able to tell you exactly in front of each building. So this is why I have, for example, these are the total reports of the robbery, and these are the robbery that I have a fine and detailed location of the place. So if I work with actual lines, I can work with this data. But if I'm working with segments and very detailed information, I only work with the data, the refined data that we call. This is some information about the period of the day. We start working with this information, then we start to open in 8 times of the days, and we start seeing the behavior. And so, the first part that we have to consider in a profile is integration, of course. So we run several analyses using space impacts from the macro stage to macro to micro scale, using actual lines and also the segment analysis. And then we use land use variety, that is the presence of diversity. I use here diversity, but I was using variety of uses. Like of a particular space that also attracts people during different periods of the day. So this is in the same road. This is a block with several little shops in the same building, residential building. So these have high diversity of uses, very low. I don't know what happened here. Go, how do I return? Yeah, okay. Land uses, so we have the whole map of the neighborhood with each plot. We already know the plot, the uses of the plot. So the problem is how we put that in the segment. segment. It's one segment, it's the second segment. And when we have to classify all of this, the we can use a very complicated algebra. So if I have residential and residential, I say it's one, low variety, commercial and residential for two, there is two different uses. And I have service, commercial, it's three, and we make a kind of combinations in order to describe the qualities. The next one is density. We have buildings with very high-rise buildings, others in the same neighborhood with little houses. And density, we decide to use density as the number of inhabitants for census tract, because we decided if you're walking in a neighborhood, it doesn't really matter how many people in the block, but in a wider area. So this is why we're using the census area in order to stage 1 to 5 the number of inhabitants in each neighborhood area. Interface is the we measure the visual permeability and what James Jeffries called social surveillance of the road. And we decide if it is open, transparent. This is the interchangeable, closed or half closed. We have this to define 5 kinds of interfaces. For example, in this case, we have in the same plot, in this side we have a closed interface and a transparent interface in the other one. Each segment is considered the qualities in the line, in the face line of the block. Okay, this is how we classify the interface. If we have closed, partial closed, considering also the length of the block face is more than 80% closed, it's 1, and if it is 5% closed, it's open. Something like that. Very complicated. Okay? And constitutions, that's more easy. The amount of opening to the roads, and we have highly constituted and no constitutional law. And also we consider between 1 to 5 the constitutions in order to analyze. This is how we rules that we use to classify if the segments are very much constituted or less constituted. Okay, so the result about morphology. So when we analyze, we use the actual lines to analyze the global and the local. And here we have the lines with greater number of crimes. We easily perceive the variance of movement, especially local movement, to the patterns of crime. We analyze that first of all as the number of crime per actual lines. Although as in the morphology of the neighborhood we have very long lines in this direction and very short lines here, then we made a normalization, as you suggested in one of these studies, and we use a number of crime by meter, and it gave a completely different result to make us go like that. And then we analyze also. Okay. So this, we made a statistical analysis, and we have to use a regression called negative binomial regression, because as we have many actual lines with 0, 0, 0 crimes, we cannot use a linear regression. We use a Poisson analysis, but then the binomial negative regression models the situation better, and it's also showed that it's very, very high significance between the value of the migration tree and the length of the actual to the crimes. Then we run the analysis using the urban segments. So running analysis considering much more the lines of movements in the neighborhood than the previous one was only actual lines. But when we analyze crimes, we have this kind of aspects. For example, we have here, for example, this line with a lot of crime, but crime happens only in three parts of the road, and it does not work, happens only generally in the line. But there is a pattern of dispersion and also concentration of crimes in these lines. So these are the lines when we have a lot of crime and very little crimes to no crimes at all. So we can see the results of what it shows. Again, this negative binomial regression show a very interesting results. And in fact, we developed some models showing that estimating, for example, it estimates how integration and length of the line explained crime. So in this model, where they say if I get 100 meters more in my segment, how many crimes are expected to have in the segment. And with this model, what's very interesting is because I use it to structure a sample of my study. Because considering that integration is very important to define crime, I have, for example, places with the same integration but with higher values of crimes and lower occurrence of crimes. So this means that there is something else here explaining this rather than integration. And so this is why I decide now to see the other characteristics that in order to understand these pairs of informations. So this is what's interesting, because the binomial allows me to model the results and to understand these things. Okay. Then we go next to spatial profile. Spatial profile, we have this huge database, and I have to tell my life after Google Street Views is another thing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I agree.
Oh my God. I have to put a special knowledge to Google. Because we can go every blog and open the Google and go there and see what they have there. What is this? And we use that. We have this we said that we have in every segment, every plot, we have the information about use, interface, length of the plot, and everything like that. And all this information goes, of each block, goes to the line. This is the profile represents this block, the line in front of the block. And so, for example, this block has a profile 1513. That's no variety of high density, closed, and medium constituted. So it's like an urban DNA. So each block, I have a special DNA of the architectural features of the block. This is like a data matrix looks like. Okay. And I use here a very not so usual statistic or multidimensional analysis. And this is a special kind of analysis along with qualitative analysis proposal. It makes two kind of ordering. It's make a quantitative order. So this is much more quantitative than here, the 0, 1. And then he analyzes the profiles qualitative. In this one I have the first number higher and the last one lower. And it makes this kind of scala representing the quantitative and the qualitative analysis. This is a very interesting software developed in Israel by a mathematician called Louis Guttman. And these are the kind of results that this poser gives you. It plots all the data in a space. And this space shows, for example, the variation of profiles first in a axis, a quantitative axis. This is lower and this is higher, and then in a qualitative axis. This one has the first part and numbers of the profiles higher and this lower, so they are different. And there is a rules to make this order. For example, the problem trying to put all, for example, if here is integration, all higher integration here and lower here. The second is density, all the higher density here is lower here. And so it makes this kind of regional arrangement considering all the elements of the profile. And what we have here is the results. I have here it's 137 profiles plotted here. And this is the general result. So what I have here, all the red dots are the segments with higher amounts of crime. All the green dots are the segments with no crime at all. Okay? And I have a vulnerability region A and a vulnerability region B. I have two places with higher crime and two places with no crime at all in this form. Then we are going to see what happened. If we look at density, all the profiles with high densities are here. Then we have over here that 1, 1, 1 is very low density. This 2, 2, 2, and the brownish points are very high density. So I have a region of crime in a high density neighborhood. But I also have a region of crime in 2, 2, 2, and 3 density. But at the same time, I have also very safe places with this kind of low density. And the next is then variety. Variety follows very much integration. It's amazing. High integration have high variety, expected, I think so, and lower variety as well. In fact, this is the line of integration if you put in the plot. And variety we have here 5, 4, and I have 1, 3, 1, 1, 1. Okay? So, in this plot here, we have this area with high density and low variety. And this one was low density and high variety. Okay. The next information. Visual interface. Visual interface cuts the space in an order like that. Open to closed. In this area where we had high density. What was the second one? High density? No, low density. High, yeah. Okay, and now it's closed. And we have here with interchangeable mainly. Although we have 5, 5, 5 are very open. And here we have 3, 3, 3 interchangeable. So, -1. Constitution. Constitution against all the knowledge now means nothing. Means nothing, at least in Brazil, at least in Recife, and at least in crime situations here. First of all, Constitution runs in this direction, so it doesn't follow it's not modulated by the other information. So this means that we have very constituted lines, either in very integrated or less integrated places. But then we have this area here with highly constituted, it's exactly in my area of vulnerability, of a great amount of crime. And here, in this one, we have very low constituted as well. So, what we have to do with all this? Oops. I'm going in the wrong directions. Please. Here. Putting all together. So we have here the lines that define the higher values and the lower values. And what I'm saying that in this study I did not integrate a plot with the integration, and even so I decided to put here the line of integration to make it easier to understand the structure of the data. So we have here, I have here integration defining areas with very high integration and low. Variety follows integration because it's a high variety, low variety. Interface doesn't matter. We have open and closed. Here's the closed and the more open interface. And constitution, isn't it? It's here. Very constituted and lower constituted. And so what does this shows? So in a certain way, what I'm trying to see is all these variables together in the same way. So in fact, we are defining two kinds of environments. And I say that the vulnerable places, environment one, that is the first area we have, are segments with high occurrence of crimes. They are integrated with very few residents, usually they are commercial areas, great variety of land use, but it doesn't matter if you have land use if you don't have inhabitants or dwellers in the area, and with very open interfaces, because commercial areas have very open interfaces. Probably with great presence of people, but people with no familiarity. They are attracted by different objects, but they are strangers among themselves. And these areas have important time effect, the rapid transformation between day and night. They are all open until 6 o'clock, and after all closing, they die. Okay? The environment 2 is a less integrated environment with no variety of land use, and mainly residential, with very close interfaces and few constitution. That is the environment that we really hate, we really don't want it in the city, but it's safe. It's safe. In fact, this is a very vulnerable place. The safe place is that one. High density of inhabitants, no variety of land use, very close interface. This is the safe profile of Boviage. We are all the time saying what kind of city are we promoting with no urbanity, with everything closed, surveillance. But this is the safe places in the city. Of course, no crime happens there. There is nobody walking the street. A lot of surveillance. What we learn also from this data, and this is only to make a connection with Newton, that urbanity is different than vitality, is because we have a lot of people, we have diversity, but in the case of Brazil, where the robbers are not afraid of the police, we have a higher impunity, they rob you in the most area full of people with a revolver in your head, and nothing happens. Nobody helps you, okay? And so, is that I was trying, because Boviagem is a neighborhood with a lot of vitality, but there is no urbanity, that's the thing. So Bill, in the last paper, he said that co-presence of people is enough to create a civilized aspects of a civilized place. So community was not important for that. I agree with him that it's not community that's important also, but co-presence in this case, it's not enough to make a civilized and safe environment. Okay. So next step. First of all, we are profiling 500 segments in the same neighborhood, but also comparing with other neighborhoods with completely different morphological analysis in order to see if the profiles are really sensitive for different morphological aspects. And we're trying to incorporate also some social values in the profile, because in this neighborhood, for example, we have one part of the neighborhood, we have a very high wealthy buildings and inhabitants. And another, it's a more lower middle class. And we believe that this kind of aspects are important also for the logic of the robber. Because the robber in his thief, I used to say that it thinks like a fisherman. If you are going to fish, you will choose the place where you have more fishes and the biggest ones. So it's there that we're going to work. So somehow it's the same logic that we see, because we don't see all these deterrents in the behavior of robbery happening in the city. Okay, thank you. We have another one. Yes. Is this one?
No.
Question in
Congratulations. Yes, yes.